5 minutes after the hour of 6 a.m., it is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor in the house, and Shane Tobin on the line with me from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and welcome you to the KMMS Morning Soapbox. Shane, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
I couldn't sleep. I wanted to sleep. I tried to sleep. I mean, what a weekend. I mean, this is just heaven, baby. I've been giddy all week and feeling like this is, wow, what's Monday morning going to be like?
Well, it's been quite a week, that's for sure. All the news on Friday, and of course, we're going to be covering that today as we go through the program today. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Scott Sales and Steve White will join us, and we'll be talking about what's going on in the state and how the ramifications of what's going on in Washington affect Montana, if at all. So we'll be chatting about that, and certainly a bunch of other stuff as we go through the morning show. Well, our weather, boy, just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in, Shane. We got snow coming. We got a lot of it, unless they take it out of the forecast, but we're looking for a high of 48 today and partly cloudy, which should be pretty nice. 49 tomorrow and cloudy, and then rain and or snow starts moving in. On Wednesday, a high of 42, and they've got 1 to 3 inches of either rain or snow predicted. And then on Thursday, we drop down to 34 for a high and 3 to 5 inches of snow predicted, about a 70% chance of that happening. That will be most of the day, and tapering off in the late evening, and then 1 to 3 additional inches on Friday. So we're going to get some, looks like we're going to get some snow. And then it warms up again, 42 on Saturday, 44 on Sunday, mostly sunny those 2 days, and then back into the 40s, and here come the April showers. 1 to 3 inches of snow and or rain on April 2nd, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So looks like we got some weather coming in, Shane. So enjoy the next couple of days. Then it's going to get nasty for the end of the week and into the weekend. And then, the weekend will start perking up a little bit, and then back to rain and snow. So that's this time of year in Montana. That's what we've come to expect, I guess. So.
Well, that and spring skiing. Come on now. Well, there's a positive here. There's a positive.
Oh yeah. There's a positive.
Yeah, somewhere skiing.
Somewhere in there. Yeah, I'm not sure when Bridger closes. I'll have to find that out. Maybe somebody out there, some of the skiers, when do they close? Let us know.
Yeah,
522-TALK, 522-8255. Yeah, because I don't know how long the season is. We got tons of snow. There's got to be some snow still left up there, I think, even with the melting that we've had. So I don't know. Maybe they can last a few more months before the stumps start peeking through the snow.
and you're anticipating flooding, so there you go.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, we've already seen parts of I-90 close for flooding between Hardin and Wyoming border. I think the I-90 was closed over the weekend, so not sure if they've got that cleared out yet or not. And speaking of that, we're starting today, we've got some downtown road closures that we need to talk about. The expansion of the highway on Rouse, they are going to change some gas lines. They're going to move some gas lines for that expansion. So there are going to be some road closures downtown concerning Mendenhall, and Main Street will be open, but Mendenhall, Rouse, and some of the surrounding alleys and streets and things down there are going to be closed. So there could be a bottleneck down there at Rouse and Main. So avoid that area if you can. They're going to be working down there till April 23rd, I believe. The details of and a map are on our website at kmmsam.com. So get over there and check that out, and we'll see how
that's great. That's great. From the morning mayor, our Google master.
Yeah, there you go. Right, yeah. Well, on this day in history, the British are at it again. Shade, 1634, Maryland was founded by English colonists sent by the Second Lord Baltimore.
That's right, George Calvert. And he was a Catholic.
Yeah.
And Charles I of England. Now, remember, that's the first British king to be executed by the Jacobites.
Yep.
And he granted a colonial charter naming the colony after his wife, Queen Mary.
Queen Maryland. So that's
Maryland.
Where Maryland came from. All right. In 1807, the Britain abolished its slave trade. That's right. Considerably before we did, I might say.
That's right. And the interesting thing is that they pretty much abandoned it in 1772, but then they got rid of slavery by the Act for the abolition of slave trade.
Yeah, there you are.
Anyway,
it's Monday and 5 o'clock for you, isn't it?
That's right. And it's interesting because it's 1833, but as I said, they pretty much had gotten rid of it on the island in 1772. But between 1,300 voyages across the Atlantic Ocean, nearly 400 slaves were brought to North and South America and the Caribbean. So there you go.
Well, also too, when that happened, the African heads or the African chiefs or whatever went to England and tried to convince them that, hey, this is big money for us. You guys,
that's right.
You guys need to find some work for these folks, because we got a whole bunch of them in pens and we don't know what to do with them. So come on.
Yeah. The coastal Africans went into the interior to get the slaves for the Dutch and the British. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah.
It's something that's and William Wilberforce. I mean, it always takes some independent British guy to do something different. Like the guy for Brexit, right? Mm-hmm. This is the guy that started the whole process of we got to stop this, and he was successful at doing it.
Yeah.
And finally ended up being elected to Parliament in 1780 because of his work.
Yeah. 1894, Jacob S. Coxey began leading an army of the unemployed from Massillon, Ohio to Washington, D.C. to demand help from the federal government. They needed help with wages and working conditions and all of that stuff they were complaining about, and that kind of spearheaded the union work of the 1920s and 30s. Eventually morphed into that.
And it was sort of like the first big march on Washington as a protest. That's why it's significant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's significant for a number of reasons, but one of the big reasons was it was the first big. They had the Million Man March, and now they have these marches.
For every
frequently now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're kind of old news. Well, they are. I mean, there's a march on Washington. Oh, well, I don't know. There's a game on ABC. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get a pizza and not march.
Yeah, that's right. We'll watch it live on TV.
There you go.
We'll spin the internet.
We'll support them from here.
Yeah, exactly.
1913, the home of vaudeville. The Palace Theater opened in New York City, and boy, vaudeville was the entertainment of the year before television, and a lot of vaudevillians went to TV. Edgar Bergen and Charlie McCarthy and some of those folks. Who else? Abbott and Costello and Jack Benny. All these guys moved away from vaudeville and got on TV, and away they went. Yeah,
and it made New York City the center of theater. Mm-hmm. There's over 20 theaters on Broadway, off Broadway now, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry,
and still is. Many people still go there, and they have thousands and thousands of performances of some play or something that.
Or plays that have run for 10 years, and they have their famous Tony Awards they give out every year.
Yeah. 1957, the Treaty of Rome established the European Economic Community, whatever that was, and
That's the EU. No, that's the beginning of the EU. That's when the EU started. Yeah, baby. And it took them, what, 43 years to get it
to get
done.
it right, to get it done.
And now it's taken 20 years for it to fall apart.
Well, it's taken 40 years for England to leave.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, you know how politicians are. They move very slow so they get paid more.
So, yeah.
It's all about getting paid more, right?
I'm surprised it was the Treaty of Rome, since Italy is in pretty bad shape. So's Spain, so's France.
It just
and
amazed
Greece.
me. I was 2 years old when they started this whole idea of, uniting Europe. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But you think about it, it's the first time in the history of Europe they were united politically. Let's be honest now.
Oh yeah.
That's a good thing. No guns were fired.
No, that's true. Yeah. Yes.
Just rubber bullets and a lot of tear gas.
Yeah. Well, in 1965, the Reverend Martin Luther King led 25,000 marchers to the state capitol in Montgomery, Alabama, to protest the denial of voting rights to blacks.
Yeah, that was in the Democratic Deep South, of course. And, this is like the fourth turn of the abuse of the African American by the Democratic Party. Yeah. Just astounds me that they support the party. I just don't get it. Wow.
I know, it is surprising, yeah. Particularly when the whole Republican Party was started to combat slavery back in the 1850s. And
that's right.
Whatever. So I don't know.
And I predict by before Trump leaves office in 2024, the Democratic Party will be gone, and it'll be replaced with the Green Party. They'll be gone. They'll start the Green Party.
That's you think so?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but 1992, cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev returned to Earth from the Mir space station after a 10-month stay, during which his native country, the Soviet Union, has ceased to exist.
Can you imagine?
Hey, I went to school, came home, and the parents moved.
That's right. Don't call home, get here, because we're going somewhere else.
That's right. We'll let you know where we are. Well, in 1994, on this date, American troops completed their withdrawal from Somalia, and we're looking at maybe getting out of Syria too. With finally took the last bastion of land from ISIS. They're not gone, but certainly they don't control what they did when 2 years ago.
It's just so amazing. All these countries are about tribal history, and once again, the famous book Black Hawk Down, where they tried to grab these tribal leaders in the middle of the capital, and we all know the story. Yeah. That basic, it was like remember the Marine base in Lebanon when Reagan, he went into Lebanon with the American military, and the Marines got whacked in that terrible incident with the building collapsing on them, and then the U.S. left there. So there you go.
Yeah. In 1996, the redesigned $100 bill went into circulation, and there you go. So
that amazing story, buddy.
There we are. Got to take a break. We got Montana News and Agriculture, where we've got the emergency test, and we've also got Noxatril. So.
And 5 things you got to know today, because it's a big day to know stuff.
It's a big day to know stuff. But we'll be back with Knowing That Stuff right after this. 25 minutes after the hour of 6 a.m., it's Monday, March 25th, 2019, 35 degrees outside. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor, in the house, and Shane Matobin online with me from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and you're listening to the KMMS Morning Soapbox. And Shane, Vancouver, Washington is losing their Walmart.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
We got a bunch of Walmarts being closed. Not here, but one in Arizona and Virginia, Washington, several of them are cutting back. So
was it a year ago? 2 years ago, they closed all their mini Walmarts. Remember?
Yeah, they closed a lot of Sam's Clubs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and whatever. So yeah, it was kind of a mess out there. So.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Well, there's more online sales.
Right.
The wife looks at a lot of stuff. We get a lot of stuff from Amazon, and you can either cart it home from Walmart, or you can get it from Amazon, and we get points for buying from them. We get 5% back on whatever we buy from them. So it's if I need peanut butter or Spam or something.
Spam.
Yeah, you got to have Spam. You head over there.
27 flavors in Hawaii.
Yeah, well, there's
very
a lot.
Popular. Very popular.
It's very popular in Japan, or not Japan,
Hawaii.
but Hawaii. Yeah, it's one of their top-selling meats there. It's
that's right.
They wish the rest of the country would wise up to Spam.
As the expression goes, it comes in by boatload.
Yeah, well, apparently, the Spam ship arrives, huh?
Exactly.
Must be like the trainload of White Sox in Kansas, huh?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the other things in today in history, 1998, President Bill Clinton acknowledged during his Africa tour that we did not act quickly enough to stop the slaughter of 1 million Rwandans 4 years earlier. So
and this is an interesting thing, because remember, this was one of his justifications for the whole Yugoslavia thing that went on, right? And because he that's when he started that air attack, because of the genocide with the Muslims and Catholics in that part of Eastern Europe. And
Herzegovina and all that area, and Bosnia and all that stuff. Countries changed names, and away we went. So,
yep.
Yeah.
War Powers Act, without permission of Congress, he went and started bombing the heck out of the country.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Well, he's got 90 days, I think, doesn't he, or something like that? Presidential powers. Yeah, you could bomb Cincinnati if you wanted to. I guess.
Well, I don't know about it. Yeah. The President of the United States, as Commander-in-Chief, can take any military action he chooses fit to do to protect the United States, and then has 90 days and has to report to Congress what he's doing.
Yeah, and they have 90 days to fund it.
Right.
Well, in the state in 2002, a powerful earthquake rocked Afghanistan and northern Pakistan, killing as many as 1,000 people. And that'll wrap it up for this half hour, Shane. And so,
okay, bye.
Yeah, we come back also on this date in 1996, 81-day standoff with the Freemen at the ranch near Jordan, Montana. So we want to talk a little bit about that. That's Montana history that happened on this day. Many of you remember back in 1996 when that happened with Leroy Schweitzer and the boys up there and all the FBI guys in town and all that. So we'll talk about that when we come back. So stay tuned for that. And also coming up at 8 o'clock, Steve White and Scott Sales will join us to talk about what's going on up in Helena during the legislative session up there, and a lot more to talk about with the Mueller Report after this. 24 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019, the last week of March, Shane, 35 degrees outside. Welcome to the Morning Soapbox. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor in the house. Shane Montalvan in Vancouver, British Columbia, and we're talking about the Freemen of 1996. Leroy Schweitzer and the gang up there in Jordan, Montana, had a standoff with the FBI. They were what do we call them? Militia, right-wing, anti-government, don't tread on me kind of guys.
Well, two things about this that's fascinating and relevant today is the first thing is that, these guys were basically having a problem with the Secret Service issuing checks and their own money orders and over purchasing things with them, and then asking for a refund in real money.
Right.
But the great thing is that, as you said, March 2nd, 1995, William Stanton, Garfield County rancher, became the first Montana resident ever convicted of terrorism. But here's the interesting. District Judge Kenneth Wilson sentenced Stanton to 10 years in prison, the maximum penalty, for using violence for political ends.
Wow.
Really? Now, hear that again. For using violence for political ends.
I didn't know that was illegal.
So there's a federal precedent that's been set. You can't use violence for political ends. Seems we've been watching a lot of that in the last 2 years.
I was going to say, anybody see Berkeley or Ferguson, Missouri, or anybody down there see Any political stuff going on?
Yeah.
The Watts riots, Rodney King, come on.
Do you think your Justice Department would have grounds for, indicting a few people for using violence for political ends?
I would suppose so. I don't know.
Anyway, it was for bank fraud, and 8 guys got convicted. That's pretty amazing, and none of them fared well.
Yeah.
Leroy Schweitzer got 22 years and died in federal prison in 2011.
Yeah.
73 years old. There you go. Ouch.
Yeah. Well, it was quite a time here in Montana. People were taking sides on, against the government. Some were, some felt it was, the Freemen had overreached their boundaries. And a lot of people, though, in Montana felt they were justified in their, much like the Bundys were, and the guys in Oregon that took over the ranger station there, or whatever they took over the federal building there.
And the ranchers in Nevada.
Ranchers in Nevada. Yeah. So that has led up to a lot of mistrust in government. Not that that's surprising, knowing what we know now with the FBI and the, some of these other folks that, are behind the scenes that we don't get to, we don't know their names until they start emailing each other about, going after the president. But
that's right. And I think it was the forerunner of the Tea Party that came around, 8 years ago,
true.
I guess.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the Freemen was sort of a spring off of that. The Tea and Tea Party, taxed enough already.
Exactly.
Was that's where the name came from, as far as I know, anyway. And of course, the thing to the Boston Tea Party also. But I think this was kind of a more civil spinoff of the Freemen. That we are going to peacefully protest our government, which we should have the right to do, and we do in most cases, I think. So, we were talking about the marches and all this that happen periodically. There's a march on Washington and whatever. But the interesting thing about the Tea Party, though, all of their rallies and things like that, they clean up after themselves. That's the amazing thing, that that all these other guys leave a trash pile or heap. For
and the other thing too that's important to remember, that this was 2 years after the standoff in Waco, Texas, right, with the Branch Davidians. That did not turn out well. So the FBI was a bit more aware of how they handled it, right? 81 days.
Yeah, you can go all the way back to Ruby Ridge, where there's an overreaction that results in somebody's death for these various civil disobedience, I would call them. But if you start shooting and killing people and burning the place down and killing children inside and whatever, I think that's a little much, and we don't see that. You go back to Kent State, shooting students at Kent State. And
we should remind people at Ruby Ridge, an FBI sniper took out a woman in that.
The wife.
It was a bad situation with the Weaver family.
Yeah, it was. It was very bad up there, and that all of these things kind of piled on top of each other got us to where we are today.
To some degree, yeah.
Yeah, as these things move along, we have less and less trust of government, and more and more we see our freedoms being slowly usurped.
Usurped, yeah. And the other thing about it too is that what happened on Friday, which we'll talk about later, and it's a big word, the weaponization of federal offices, like the FBI and the Attorney General's office. But this actually sort of happened, and then people. It's not like this again. We talked about the whole issue of other things. This whole thing about weaponizing different departments of the U.S. government. It started 10, 15, 20 years before.
Yeah, it did. Well, you can go back to the the IRS refusing status to conservative groups and things like that.
That's right.
I mean, all these things. There's only so much that people can take before they say, hey, I'm not going to be silent anymore. I'm going to, I'm going to take to the streets and whatever. And a lot of people think we have reached that point, and it's we are going to go into some kind of a violent standoff, another Civil War type thing, because we're seeing ideologies moving so far away from each other that compromise seems impossible.
And we have to remember that all this happened during the Clinton administration, the 8 years he was the president. So you have to wonder if, this, again, an extension of Hillary's attitude of, what she can get away with, right? And so, it's a scary thing, but now we're going to find out, Tommy.
Yes, we will. All right, we got to take a break. More Noxitril for you. So luckily it's the first one, so you can turn the radio down. It's only a minute long, and then you can turn the radio back up, I guess. So, but anyway, I don't know how to get rid of these things. I've emailed and called, but I will keep trying. I don't believe we need Noxitril between 6 and 9 in the morning. So, all right. But anyway, here it is. All right, it is 13 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, and Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor, and Shane Montalban on the line. Half man, half amazing in Vancouver, British Columbia, and you're on the KMMS Morning Soapbox. If you want to be a part of the big broadcast today, 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255, or you can text us at 478-8298, 478-8298, and there's a new way to contact us. You can go to our AM 1450 KMMS phone app, and next to the Listen to Us button, there is a message button, and click on that, and you can shoot a message directly to us without having to go through the text, find the phone number, and all of that. You can just zip it right to us from there, and let us know what your thoughts are. If you don't want to be on the radio or can't get through, we'll be happy to entertain your thoughts from the text line or the new message line. And you can also hear us on Alexa and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah.
Two key words, everyone. Download, and like our Facebook page.
Yes, we are so excited. We broke 1,000, Shane, over the weekend.
I know.
Yes, sir. All right. We did break 1,000 Facebook likes. I'd like to thank everybody who helped out with that. Thank you for liking our page. It helps us point out that we're growing the station, we're growing the audience and all of that, and that's what they're looking for, is somebody who can do that. So we thank everybody very much, and keep them coming, keep them going. Yes, Shane.
So just for the Weathermeister's update, because nobody else has even talked about this, but we always like to be first. So Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and other countries on the eastern coast of Africa had a huge typhoon hit March 24th, 2019. Oh, not a word on the a word on the news about it. I shouldn't laugh. It's terrible. Like 700 people have died. But the amazing thing is that this country of 29 million people, not in a good way, third world, living on less than $6 a day. And their food store, I mean, it's horrific, the damage and everything. And normally in these cases, everybody jumps on it. The UN does, countries do. They send in their military. Nothing.
Yeah.
It's like nothing.
Yeah,
Very sad.
I think we mentioned it. When was it? Wednesday or Thursday? Whenever it happened. Yeah. And you're right. There was. I certainly didn't see any coverage. Nobody sent anybody down there, or. Didn't see anything coming out of it. Well, when you got politics and weather, come on. I mean, you got to have priorities. So.
Well, it's a member of the Commonwealth, so it was on BBC. So those of you that get BBC see the world reports like countries like that. So there you go.
Yeah. So I guess maybe BBC got it from us. You think? I'm sure they probably listen, don't you think?
I think they pay attention.
Yeah. Well, we're trying to do that. I know Shane scours not only local news but world news. So we're always looking for, stories and things like that are, not off the beaten path, but things that maybe people don't cover that they should. And, we got 3 hours a day to do it, so why not?
Right.
Let's get it out there. Let's get it out there.
We can only talk so much about politics.
I know, yeah. I mean, that gets boring after a while.
No, it never gets boring.
Well, not for you. But a lot of people think, what, if I hear politics again, I'm going to shoot myself. But We'll see. Anyway, we got to take another quick break, but hey, no Noxitril, no babble, no nothing. So enjoy. And make sure you contact these great folks that are advertising with us. Many of them here are local, so go for it. 6 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor, in the house, and Shaman Taubman, half man, half amazing in Vancouver, British Columbia. Welcome to the KMMS Morning Soapbox. All views are welcome here, so give us a call at 522-TALK or text us at 478-8298. I'll be happy to take your calls there, and you can also get our new message app, which is included with AM 1450 KMMS. Right next to the Listen to Us button, you'll see a message button. Just click on that and pop in some info, and you can message us directly without having to go to the text and phone number and all that stuff. So, yeah, it'll come right straight over here to us, and we will keep you informed as to what listeners off the air are thinking, and that's always good because we no, not everybody wants to be on the air, and not everybody wants to voice their thoughts publicly, but so any way you want to do it, we've got a way for you to do it. So we're happy to offer those services to you. So, well, we've been talking about the Freemen, Shane, and whatever. The FBI was here in full force during that time. I think there were more FBI agents than there were deer here in Bozeman. Couldn't swing.
Yeah, and then you had, and then Montana was made famous by the Unabomber. I mean,
that's true.
My goodness.
Yeah. We've had our share.
Yeah, you have.
We've had our share of the good guys. Don't like America very much, or well. You know, when you look at the history of government abuse of citizens, you might understand where some of these folks are coming from. You know,
absolutely, it's an amazing reality, and that's why 5 things to know are so exciting today.
That's true. Excuse me, not sure where that came from, but. I'm getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm so excited. I want to segue.
Yeah. Well, we are going to cover the Mueller Report coming up after the break at the top of the hour. Certainly, we can't cover it in 3 minutes, but I don't know.
No.
I don't know if we can cover it in an hour, but we'll try to.
My Eagle Man, that was my effort at a tease.
Your tease. All right. Yeah, we'll be. Yeah, we want to talk about the Mueller Report when we come back and get. I can't believe you're not up to speed, but if you're not,
yeah, right.
we'll help you, or try to anyway.
Well, with March Madness, it's an amazing.
Oh yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Yeah, we got that going on. Yeah,
Duke almost got hammered last night.
They almost, man, won in the last second there. So yeah, they're supposed to take it all, but man, well, there's been a lot of upsets, particularly in the first round. There were a lot of upsets. Yeah, I was looking at the brackets the other day, and man, there were lots of them. They had some.
Well, and the thing that sets it apart in sports in your country, it's really the only competition in tournament that's round robin.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's quite a contrast, and of course, college basketball is different than grade school basketball or high school basketball or pro basketball, because instead of 4 quarters, college basketball plays 2 20-minute halves.
That's right.
So,
but the height of the basketball net is still 11 feet.
Actually, it's 10 feet, but that's okay.
I'm sorry, 10 feet.
Yeah, it's 10 feet. Yeah.
You think it's a Canadian? I know, since a Canadian invented it.
Well. Well, he invented it here, so that doesn't count. It's not where you're from. It's where you are when you invent something. You know.
I love it. You're the best, Eagle Man.
That's right. Don't forget it either. Let's see from our text line. Hey guys, love the show. Shame the R in Washington is silent and invisible. Canadians rock. So there's no Washington. It's Washington. Okay. Unless you're from, what are you, west of the Mississippi, I think, then you're Washington. Or Or is it on the other side? I don't know. Or south of the Mason-Dixon line, it's Washington.
Come on, it's that Canadian accent. Give me a break here, okay?
That must be it, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, hey, thanks for that text, and thanks for straightening Shane out. He needs all the help he can get, certainly. So we're happy that you pointed that out to him. So he'll watch it, because we're going to talk about Washington coming up. Washington after this. So. All right, the Mueller report is out. Barr sent a summary to Congress. Congress is unhappy, of course, and why wouldn't they be? All right. Hang on. Hey, we'll be right back. Hey, don't forget about Kitabaloo coming up on April 6th, 10 to 3 at the Brick Breeden Field House. Get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com and take the kids over there and have a good time at Kitabaloo. Or Tickets West. I'm sorry, not Ticketmaster. Ticketswest.com. Don't go to Ticketmaster. They'll rip you off. We'll be right back. 5 minutes after the hour of 7 a.m., it is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Shane Matobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia, half man, half amazing, and Tom Eagleoff, your morning mayor, in the house. And this is the KMMS Morning Soapbox. All views are welcome here. It's where Montana talks, of course, and we're both happy to be here to start your week, the final week of March. We've got snow in the forecast around Wednesday and Thursday of this week, so 1 to 3 inches one day, 3 to 5 the next. I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes, but we've got a lot of stuff going on there. So Friday, the Mueller report was released. Bob Barr looked it over and sent a summary that I am looking at on my screen from Bob Barr to he sent it to Lindsey Graham, chairman of the Judiciary, Gerald Nadler, the committee on the Judiciary also, Dianne Feinstein, the committee on the Judiciary, and Doug Collins was the other one, all Judiciary members. And the report was in two parts. One was there collusion with the Russians, and the second part was obstruction of justice. That were the two items that were covered in the two. The first one is pretty cut and dried, no collusion between Trump or any of Trump's people and the Russians to fix the election or influence the election or anything. The other part, the obstruction of justice, is a little less clear. And that's probably where they are headed with that. What do you think, Shane?
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I'm just so excited about this. But anyway, the one thing about the report I found fascinating that Mueller did was he slipped in that no American citizen was involved in collusion.
Yeah.
And I think that's out for Hillary, right? But we'll see what the Attorney General does on that. The other thing I found fascinating is now we know why the Attorney General kept Rosenstein on. Mm-hmm. Because in his announcement, he said that he huddled with with Rosenstein and other attorneys at the, AG office to come up with this response that says, there's no obstruction. So we'll see where that carries. But Crazy Gate's alive, folks. It'll still be going around. I still predict the Three Stooges, Clapper, Comey, and Brennan will be indicted along with, McNabb and what's his name, Cohn or and his wife, and McNabb. Is it McNabb? McNabb.
McNabb.
McNabb. Yeah. So I still think you'll see some accountability. I don't think this will pass without people being accountable for what's gone on, because it's horrific. It was, really, Tom. This was a conspiracy from the very beginning, the way we look at it and have reported it for 2 years. Mm-hmm.
Well, I still think the obstruction of justice is the way it's worded in this letter is, after making a thorough factual investigation into these matters, special counsel considered whether to evaluate the conduct under department standards governing prosecution and declination decisions, but ultimately determined not to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment. So,
that's right.
and I think if you're gonna have an investigation, it either proves something or it doesn't, and
That's right.
that opens the door for, well, it could or could not be depending on your definition. It's like the Hillary, was she extremely careless or was she guilty of,
Yeah, right. And props to Mueller because he followed protocol.
Mm-hmm.
He did his report and he gave it to the Attorney General Barr. He didn't go out and have a news conference like our favorite, guy Comey, who decided to make it public before he gave it to Loretta Lynch. So that's a very cool thing to see. They're finally back with protocol. And the interesting thing about the letter is it's all legalese about the legal aspect of whether or not there's any obstruction. But you're still back with obstruction, delusion, collusion, and conspiracy that the Democrats in the House are going to investigate. So I'm telling you, they carry this on to the election, they're going to be in real trouble. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Reading further from the letter, the special counsel did not draw a conclusion one way or the other as to whether the examined content constituted obstruction. Instead, for each of the relevant actions investigated, the report sets out evidence on both sides of the question and leaves unresolved what the special counsel views as difficult issues of law and fact concerning whether president's actions and intent could be viewed as obstruction. The special counsel states that while this report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him.
That's right.
So,
and your president's handled this well because he stayed out of it. There's no obstruction, as we've said. But here's a little titty for everybody to watch. A little watch this, because the interesting thing is that last week, before the report came out, your president fired the ambassador to the Ukraine. Now, why is this important? Well, when a president takes office, every ambassador in the world submits their resignation letter.
Right.
And she would not. And she was a holdover from Obama. Mm-hmm. And, he didn't fire her until he, wanted to make sure that this was out of the way. But now the gloves are off, baby. Now we get to see the lighter side of your president.
Well, she badmouthed the president to the Ukraine and a bunch of other things to them, and that were kind of left out. The other things that happened in this thing that weren't in it, Mueller didn't indict Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, or any of those folks. They didn't charge anyone in the Trump campaign or circle with conspiring with Russia to fix the election. They did not subpoena the president, as they could have. The president didn't fire Mueller, and a lot of people thought he would or should. And the president did not interfere with the investigation, and let it play out and let it go wherever it went. And as you pointed out, no American citizen was charged with collusion or dealing with the government or the Russian government to fix the election. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Trump's a choir boy. He surrounded himself with some pretty bad people, who off the charts or out of the White House did some nasty stuff. And having Cohen for 10 years as your attorney, and all this guy did, you have to think that, well, Trump's a little under the counter with a few things here, and whether or not those will show up in the Southern District of New York or not is a whole nother bag of worms.
Well, the other thing, that's two things that happened last week that were amazing to me, and over the weekend, this one, CNN actually started talking about, who authorized all this, because it had to go to the White House. You can't do what they did with the FISA warrants and the investigation and wiretap American citizens without somebody at the White House, number one. Number two, remember we were talking about Vice President Biden, and I said I didn't think he would announce until this report came out. But then, did you notice that under the radar last week, the story came out about the 12.5 million, from the Ukraine that he got, or there's this.
Well, his son
story.
Hunter, his son Hunter got on some board somewhere, and that was a little suspect certainly. But was it illegal? Who knows?
Well, no, but somebody else has gone to prison for that, not reporting it. So, let's see what happens there, too. Yeah. So, anyway, amazing week of all kinds of stuff. So, we'll see where it all goes. But great for us, Tom.
It is great for us.
We'll be talking about this till the debates, all the way to the debates.
Well, we'll see whether or not this, it'll be interesting to see once the full report gets to Congress as to what they do with it, because that's what it's all going to come down to. And there are some things that can't be in it. Obviously, what do they call the court? The secret court thing you go to.
I never remember it.
Okay, I'm so stupid on Monday. I can't believe it. But anyway,
when he calls a group of people together to present to them the evidence he's got. Right?
Yeah, and there's no cross-examination of it and any of that, so it can't be.
All the aspects
I know everything
about
it. Yeah, I know everything about it. So, but
anyway, the point is that it's going to get quite interesting, and we'll see what kind of referrals the Attorney General gets from the House and the Senate about other indictments and where it goes. But the Demogate, Demogate now, and as I call it, the Crazy Gate scandal still alive. Now it becomes the Demogate story, because the Democrats are going to demolish their party, but we'll see.
Yeah. From our text line, 478-8298, birds of a feather, and I assume they're talking about Donald Trump and the folks that he hangs out with, so that may be them. So let's take a phone call, and we got to take a break here. Caller, you are on the Morning Soapbox. What's up?
You were whining about Cohen being Trump's lawyer for 10 years.
Yeah.
Before Cohen, he had a guy named Roy Cohn.
I remember Cohen. Yeah, I remember him.
Boy, he was the slimiest of the slime balls.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't believe you get where Trump is in New York City without being a little.
No, he's always had a good old ruthless.
Yeah. Oh yeah, your hands are. Yeah, you got some dirty fingernails there. I'll tell you. You don't move around that city.
So I'm surprised they didn't go back and look at Roy Cohn.
Well, they may, they're going to investigate him. Well, the Southern District will look at stuff he did before he was president. So, whether or not.
What about Hillary though? What about Hillary Clinton?
She's free. She's free to go. They're not going to touch her. They're not going to touch her.
It's a good thing.
The gloves are off. I disagree. You heard him yesterday when he came back from Florida at the White House saying they got to take a look at the other side and how this happened. I think
that's not going anywhere.
All I can do is quote the debates when it's a good thing that somebody like Donald Trump isn't in charge of the Justice Department. Because you'd be in jail.
You'd be in jail, yeah.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the turning point of the election, I think.
That was it for Hillary. That was it for crooked Hillary.
Well, Mueller's big problem with Hillary, guys, remember, he was running the FBI when Uranium One went down. Mm-hmm. So, he was in charge with the review of Uranium One. And
Mueller had...
that's with the Russians.
Mueller had 2 Marine colonels in there, and Mueller is a Marine colonel, too.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's military. Yeah.
Yeah, he is.
So, why doesn't he go after Hillary? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't his directive. His directive was supposed to,
anytime you're selling uranium to Russia, you got a problem.
Well, I would think so, but,
And that dossier was Steele that was a British spy to Russia and blah, blah, blah. But we'll see.
All right. Hey, thanks for the call. All right. Yeah, Hillary is. Hillary's untouchable. She's not going anywhere. So you heard it here first.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That's come on. 11 hours of testimony. I mean, come on.
We shall see, Eagle Man. We shall see.
Not touching her. Not touching her. That would energize the Democratic base, and they don't want to do that.
Okay, we'll watch.
They won't. They won't. I'm. You can take it to the bank.
Okay, buddy.
We'll make a bet. I'll buy you dinner here when you come in July. if they go anywhere near her.
Excuse me.
All right.
You made me laugh too hard.
I know. Well, all right. We'll be right back with more. Hey, no Noxatril, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. 24 minutes after the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019. 35 degrees outside. Monday, one hell of a way to spend 1/7 of your life. Shane Tobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. And from our text line at 478-8298, there is no way anything will be done to a former First Lady. We need to move on from trying to pin anything on her.
Yeah, that makes sense. Riddle me this. It's okay to go after your president after he's exonerated and continue spending money, like $30 million that Mueller spent and another $20 million spent in Congress for all their investigations. But, gee, can't go after Hillary. But we can still go after the president of the United States. Wow.
There you go. From our text line also, 478-8298. Our app seems to be looping. Maybe try turning it off and turning it back on. I don't know. Haven't had that happen before, so I'm not sure what to advise you to do. Bang your radio on the counter, or your phone on the counter. I guess I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. So, but anyway, being able to it'll depend on what is released to the. To Congress and what they do with it. That's going to be the next thing that's in line. And as I've said a long time, I think they need to forget about Hillary and they forget about FISA, forget about South District of New York, and start running for 2020. Beat Trump at the ballot box if you're going to beat him. You're not going to impeach him. That ain't going to happen. And, your best bet is to... take whatever's going on, that whatever issues your bag, and promote it. Get out there and talk about it. If you want free college, you want free health care, get out there and talk about it.
Well, the amazing thing that I saw this weekend in researching was that compared to last year, CNN lost 16% of its primetime viewers and 17% total day viewers. Young people ran away screaming. The advertiser coveted 25 to 54 age demo. CNN has lost 31% of those viewers during prime time and 29% in total day. And if you look at the broader numbers, it's pretty significant to see the demo and of Fox and MSNBC and CNN. MSNBC is down 309,000 viewers, total viewers, and day viewers 169,000. So, this is affecting people that are paying attention, have been watching this for 2 years. See how far that goes.
Well, I don't know.
It's fun.
I don't know.
Come on, it's fun. It's fun. Ratings are important.
Well, they are. Well, everybody's moving to MSNBC. That's where they're going.
Yeah.
They're going over there because the CNN is kind of buried their hatchet, so to speak, I guess, with viewers, and they just don't have the people that MSNBC does. They're not after the president as much as MSNBC is. So that's the home of, the political left, the AOC crowd, sure. The Hillary should have been elected crowd and all of those, the Don Lemon and, all those folks, whatever. But,
Matt Howe is single-handedly given credit for saving MSNBC. And of course, everyone tuned in Friday night to see her crying. Mm-hmm. She was crying Friday night on TV because of the Mueller Report.
Of course she was. Oh, yeah. From our website, or from our text line, I should say, the case against Hillary must be pursued. The hypocrisy of the Democrats is astounding. And I would agree with that, but I don't think they're going anywhere.
And my brain just turned on grand jury.
All right.
We couldn't think of that word in the last block, folks. So I want you to know we're not asleep. We're waking up.
Yeah, there you are. Fix all phone apps. Place in a bowl of water for an hour to rinse the bad bytes clean. There you are.
There
That's
you
how it
go.
works.
I like that. Yeah,
That'll work. All right. Thanks, folks. That'll take care of it. All right. We got Montana State News. We got Fox News. We got Brooke Foster weather. And we've got Noxatril, too. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with more right after this. 23 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Tom Eaglehoff, your morning mayor in the house. Shane Matobin, half man, half amazing in Vancouver, British Columbia. And coming up at 8 o'clock, the Steve White, badbills.com, and Scott Sales, the president of the Montana Senate, will be joining the two of us to talk about what's happening in the legislature. And we may talk a little bit about the Mueller thing as well, since it does seem to be the thing of the day. Well, of course, Nancy and Chucky had to. They of course are unhappy. They are saying because Mueller does not exonerate the President Trump on a charge as serious as obstruction of justice, and Barr is not a neutral observer and is not in a position to make objective determinations about the report. Oh, really? The Attorney General is not in a position to do that. Well, why is he there?
That's right.
Excuse me. Pelosi and Schumer argue Congress requires the full report and the underlying documents so that the committees can proceed with their independent work and waste their time on that when they could be doing other more productive things. So,
Here we go. Oh, this next story we got to cover real quick is the research finds young voters from Parkland, where the horrific gunning incident had ballots rejected at a high rate in November. And I find this fascinating because the Washington Post reports that 15% of the mail-in ballots sent in for the midterm election by Parkland residents, these are these people, these kids, between the ages of 18 and 21 were not counted. But then you go on to read the information that they provided, and it says Daniel A. Smith, chairman of the political science department at the University of Florida, looked at Florida's open source voting file. Why didn't the investigative reporter from the Washington Post check this out? He determined that about 1 in 7 mail-in ballots submitted by college-age voters in Parkland were not counted, or he said 5.4%, not 15. But this is the kicker, folks. You'll like this. They were not counted because they either didn't arrive in time or were rejected for reasons like not having a signature, and they want 16-year-olds to vote.
Yeah. Well, no, that's not going to work. I don't think so.
No, I mean, but a mail-in ballot is supposed to be before the election, not after.
Well, you would think so. Maybe they thought they were getting the 2020 ballot in early. So that could have been it. I don't know.
Voting in
let's go. Well, I don't know if you've seen the previews of Us, the horror film, pretty much a black cast in this. It crushed the opening weekend, 70 million in North American ticket sales, biggest one since what Avatar, I guess, came out. But it's this black family terrorized by these spirits, I guess. Wow. But it's pretty much I don't know if I don't know if the ghosts are black or not, but but the family is being terrorized certainly is. So I wonder how much that had to do with the turnout because I don't know. I have mixed feelings about horror movies or scary movies. Yeah. Most of them are kind of lame, but. If they,
but it's a hidden genre that's,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, public, they just love it. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Can we? why should whites have the corner of the market on being scared?
I don't know.
Yeah. Why should they always overcome the spooks, you know? So the Black family take them on.
I don't want to say anything that's off color, Tom.
Okay.
Let's
all right.
Good.
Let's take a phone call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Call you on the air. What's up?
Morning, Big Kahuna.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, morning, big dog. Woof.
Oof, oof.
Oof. Hey, I just wanted to talk about this Hillary thing, you know.
Sure.
It's just amazing. I mean, following up on your comment, Tom, you know, all we really have is guilt by association against Trump. And it's all allegations, innuendo, and accusations. But you look at Hillary, the Steele dossier, the obstruction or at least tampering of evidence, you know, with the email situation. You look at Benghazi, the dereliction of duty there. You look at the Uranium One dealing that, you know, wasn't full disclosure. And yet, you know,
$100 million to their foundation. $100 million.
Yeah. And, you know, you look at over the last few weeks, all these Dems are crying, nobody's above the law. You know, they want to see that Mueller report. Full disclosure, transparency. And, you know, that's one of our fundamental problems. I think it's one of philosophy. Mm-hmm. The Democrats will bring in up frivolous lawsuits. They have no shame. They'll lie. They'll do whatever to, you know, advance their agenda, as Lindsey Graham said during the Kavanaugh hearings. And the conservatives sit on their hands and never take the offensive. They just have allegation ledged against them, and they just sit there and try to defend themselves. At some point, you know, they've got to take the offensive. And my closing comment, Tom, is to address what you said about they'll never pursue Hillary, and you gave the reasons why. Yeah. Former First Lady, former Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. I agree with that, but that's sad.
It is sad. It's sad.
Saying,
yeah, it really is sad.
What we're saying is, even though there's a mountain of evidence against Hillary and just accusations against our president, we have no problem going after a sitting president. But I guess what you're fundamentally saying, Tom, is that our laws are gender biased. That's what I'm hearing. Mm. Based on that, have a good one, guys.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot for the call. Appreciate it.
You know what's amazing about this whole thing, Tom? You and I are... Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You don't have to stop. Just okay. Letting you know. Be brief.
Okay. I just real quick. You and I watched Watergate. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was a fascination. It was overwhelming. It was unbelievable. I mean, and you know, they had the investigation and the whole thing. What's amazing is that the Democrats accused Nixon of weaponizing everything, and that he was going to weaponize even more, and he had to get out because if he didn't, it would even get worse. And here you are, 30 years later, and the president clearly weaponized every department in the U.S. government. It's scary, you know. It really is.
All right, we'll be right back with more right after this. 12 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. We're getting some melting, but hey, we got snow in the forecast coming midweek or so, 1 to 3 inches one day, 3 to 5 the next. So all our hard work and getting on our roofs and cleaning the snow off, well, you did it too quick.
There you go.
Oh, man. Well, March looks like it's going to go out like a lion, too.
Exactly.
Came in like a lion, it's going out like a lion. So, I don't know. Usually when we get to April, we feel a little more comfortable, you know, but I don't know. I don't think it's going to get any better this week.
I don't think you're going to need April showers this year because you're going to have
April snow to cover that. Yeah, we're going to have April snow all winter. So, I don't know, man. It's, bad. So anyway, grand jury, that was the term I was trying to think of. Shane mentioned it earlier, but yeah, the grand jury testimony is secret. Now, whether or not, I don't think they're going to release any grand jury testimony to Congress. So whatever was discovered in there, now I'm not sure how you report what came out of a grand jury exactly.
Well, and the other problem that they have too is they can't bring out anybody's names that were looked at, because they said they talked to 500 people.
Right.
So you can't bring out any of those names, because then it's a suggestion because they were interviewed, they might be involved, or they might be guilty of something. So there's a lot of things that the law protects people in some ways. But
well, that's the purpose of the grand jury, is deciding whether or not somebody is has committed a crime or should be bound over for trial or something like that. So,
and remember, the investigative general Horowitz, that he's still got to put his report in about the FISA warrants and everything, and they say that'll be another 60, 90 days. So the FISA court, when they see his report, if it's not good, I mean, if there's a bad side to it,
well, that would be the one smoking gun, if there is one on the Democratic side, that could swing the election pretty good. I think Trump is smart, and again, let's get back to Hillary. I think Trump is smart to play the victim finally. That the Democrats are experts at doing. They're always the victims of, middle class is gone, tax cuts for the rich. You're always a victim, and now the president has been put upon by these bad people, and never mind all the group that surrounded him are in jail. But that's here nor there. But I think that's what we're looking at with Hillary. I don't think they're going to go near her. They might, if Trump is reelected, then all the gloves may come off. But I don't think they're going to do anything to energize the Democratic base before the election. I just don't see them doing that.
You're probably right.
If she's there, if Barr's still there and Trump is reelected, then you might see something happen, because
not only that
would be then they'd be looking at 2024.
Yeah,
and that would give them real ammunition for 2024. Yeah.
Like the caller at the beginning of the show, you'd be in prison.
Well, yeah,
like from the debate.
That's right.
So crooked Hillary's still a good, it's a good call for the president, still used to the election, right?
Well, unless Bill croaks, that would make her, of course, putting on the widow. So, if Bill's still hanging in there somehow, he looks like he's at death's door. Every time I see him, he looks deader, but I don't know. But anyway, we got to take a quick break. And no Noxatril, no, there is ethos in there. So, get ready for that. So we'll be back in 3.5 minutes. 4 minutes before the top of the hour. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 37 degrees outside. We're getting warmer, Shane, getting closer to that 40, 42. We're looking for a high today. Don't see any sunshine out there yet, but I don't know. There should be sun. Sun should be up by now. The moose must have their blinds closed. Maybe it's too warm in there, too sunny. I don't know. Coming up at 8 o'clock, I couldn't think for a minute, Steve.
Scott Sales.
I was set on the grand jury.
I know. It's
SteveWhiteBadBills.com and Scott Sales, the president of the Senate, will join us by phone from Helena. So we'll be going through some of the bills and things that are going on in Helena, and may continue on with the Mueller probe investigation. Not much going to happen, I think, till full reports are released to Congress, and then they go bonkers. Do you think they'll call Mueller to the?
Oh gosh, absolutely.
You think
he'll lead him up. He'll lead him up.
Think
you watch him.
Yeah. Well, he may.
Oh, yeah.
They may be afraid to bring him in.
I think so, because the problem that they have is they're going to they'll make speeches, blah blah blah, for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then they'll ask him a question they know he can't answer, and he'll look at them and he'll go, "Why do you keep asking me questions I can't answer?"
Mm-hmm.
He'll lead them up if they bring him in.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
I was gonna say, do you keep asking the same question in different ways, hoping you'll get the answer that you want? So that's probably how it's going to go. So Well, we'll see how that plays out in the next coming days.
It'll be interesting for political theater because that's
oh
what
yeah,
it's become.
well, that's what
it's
it
become
is.
Political theater.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, we've got a difference between what's legal, what the law is, and this political theater, because what they're, regardless of the evidence, whatever it is, they are going to have to paint Trump in a bad light, and I think that's why they said while this doesn't, he's not accused of a crime, but he's not exonerated either. So it depends on what Congress decides to do with this info. And when they see the full report, other than what has to be redacted, I guess, for grand jury testimony and also the names of grand jury witnesses and things like that. And also they'll have to redact any national security information or stuff they got from White House aides or anybody like that shouldn't be made public.
That's right.
And I don't think anybody...
And the similarity between Comey's report on the email issue with Hillary and this report with your president from Mueller. Remember, both of them were great Republicans. They hated Comey, then they loved Comey, then they hated him. So now Mueller's on the bad side of the Democrats, right?
Well.
But he put that little piece in there that he can't exonerate him. It's great. Political theater, buddy.
Well, but he totally surrounded himself with Democrats, which should give validity all over the place to this report.
Huge. Yeah.
I mean, he was the only Republican, I think, in the whole group. So why are the Democrats upset with this? I mean, most of these people donated to Hillary during the campaign. I mean, if they aren't,
including Hillary and Bill Clinton Foundation's lawyer, he was with one of the 17 too. So there you go.
So if you can't find anything on him, if you're a Democrat, boy, I'll tell you, you were. You need to find another line of work. All right. We'll be right back with Steve White and Scott Sales after the top of the hour. 5 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Shane Tobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia, half man, half amazing. And Scott Sales is on the line with us. Scott from the president of the Montana Senate. And Steve White is in the House, and we're rocking and rolling here with what's going on in the legislature, guys.
Well, good morning, and welcome to President Sales for being with us this morning.
Yeah.
It's great. And he didn't want to drive those nice foggy roads all the way from Helena to come all the way to your show.
Yeah.
Not a dedicated public servant by any means.
I was going to say, he's lazy.
Yeah, he's lazy, isn't he? No.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, I'm glad you're on the air, Scott, with us this morning.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say that we've got, and I've got a question for Scott, too, on one of the things of how it works over there. But we've got bill requests sitting in the hopper that, and some of them have been killed as bills, but it's 3,308, and House bills that were introduced at 756, Senate bills of 355, and that brings us to a total of 1111. Wow. So we've got a lot, but we've killed, they've killed 407 of them, and that could have been done through committee work or on the floor of the House or Senate. One of those was a veto by the governor, and the governor has 60 bills sitting there waiting for some decision. And of the bills that have gone through the system, we've got 99 of them have been added into law. But Scott, there's one thing I was going to ask you about. It seems that there were some more bill requests put in over the last week or so, and how does that work with? I thought there were some deadlines that had to be met.
Well, there are, but revenue and appropriation bills have a later deadline, and so do House and Senate resolutions. So if they have an appropriation attached to them, they're legitimate in the House. And if they have a revenue attached to them, either a decrease or an increase, they're relevant. They're still eligible to be introduced in the Senate and the House. And, of course, there's a different date for House and Senate resolutions. Not joint resolutions. That timeline passed with the transmittal date, but still the Senate can send out a resolution, and so can the House.
And some of the, I was going to say, and some of the resolutions don't require a governor's signature, and some do. And what's the difference with that?
Well, if it's up to the sponsor, you can send a resolution that requires both bodies to sign it. I guess if you wanted the governor to be a participant, and it was, for lack of a better word, nonpartisan, then you could get him involved in it. But the vast majority of resolutions I see are partisan. Well, I wouldn't say they're partisan, but they're just dealing with the House and Senate. They don't include the governor as a participant, and the Senate can send out resolutions, and so can the House, independent of the other body. And, basically these are letters to Santa Claus. You're sending them to Congress. You're sending them to the president. You're sending them to, I guess we could send one to anybody. But they're not binding in any way. And basically what they're doing is just highlighting an issue that the state legislature thinks needs attention from a body that they have no control over. So oftentimes we just call them letters to Santa Claus, and oftentimes I vote against them just because they're of little consequence. And also there's study resolutions where you put forward a resolution that's going to set up the opportunity for a interim study that would have to be approved by both bodies, and then would have to be approved by the Legislative Council that has administrative oversight of the legislature during the interim.
There was one resolution that I heard a lot of the hearing on last week. It was House Joint 28, which is a resolution that it was in the House, started in the House, I think, and then it was heard by the Senate last week, and it was on the American Prairie Reserve. And the interesting thing is, you're right, with the resolutions are really just, a statement of intent, and a lot of times it does go down partisan lines. But this resolution, what I heard in the hearing was interesting, because they said that this resolution went up to a little higher level, and that there was expectation from the federal government that they were going to be making, BLM and others were going to be making some decisions on some of the government land that is being leased, that is being lost to the bison grazing, et cetera, up in near the High Line. That this resolution really did have, this was one of those resolutions that had some importance, because there were federal agencies that were going to be listening to see what the state's position was.
No, I think there's some truth to that. And the environmental community, I would say the far left environmental community, was up in arms about this bill or this resolution. And I think, it's usually, I should say, a little odd or unusual. Odd's not the right word, but unusual. That I think they called out that American Prairie Foundation by name. If I remember correctly, I haven't seen the language on this bill since I signed it to committee.
Yeah, the title of it, you're right. The title does, that is odd, that that usually isn't done.
Yeah, usually they try to be more or less descriptive, I guess I should say, not more. But yeah, and basically what this resolution is calling Congress to do, if I remember correctly, is that it's these folks have asked to basically get rid of the when you have a tailored grazing lease or a lease from the federal government for grazing on land, it's for a certain period of time. You can put your cattle or livestock on the land, let's say the middle of June, and you have to have them off by the middle of October. And I think what they're asking for is the grazing leases that went with the private property that they've acquired. They want the federal government just to lift all restrictions on terms of letting these bison graze so they could go year-round, which, other people ask for changes, your more traditional ranchers, cattle ranchers. I don't think it's unusual for them to ask for changes in their permit, but I think they're very rarely granted, and I don't know and I'm not an expert in this area, but I think it would be very unusual if the federal government let a private cattle rancher leave their cattle on federal ground indefinitely. Usually the way it's worked in the past is you give the land a chance to rest, and so this would be contrarian to the concept that I think has been kind of standard practice for quite a period of time.
And you're right in that. That was part of the hearing as I listened to it, and it was very interesting that the ranchers weren't there to testify against the American Prairie Reserve acquiring the land, because they bought hundreds of thousands of acres up in the Malta area for the purposes of taking out the domestic animals and putting bison back onto that land. But when they acquired those large ranch holdings, they also acquired those grazing leases. And you're spot on that was the issue, is that they want to convert the grazing leases from seasonal to a year-round opportunity. So,
it's a big issue for those folks up in that neck of the woods. They have, I've heard they've removed, thousands upon thousands of cattle in that area that, are being grazed on those private ranches. And you think of all the inputs when they tear out the fences and they don't do any agriculture. A lot of those places, not only did they run cattle, they put up hay, they did put up grain, some of them. So you think of all the implements and parts that are sold, and diesel and fence posts and wire and fertilizer and all the inputs. That has a major impact when these places go into conservation easements or in these type of deals, because you turn a few buffalo out on the landscape and you're not working the land. There's just a lot less inputs, and that really impacts the people on Main Street and Malta, Chinook, all the way across the High Line, where at one time these working ranches were actively involved in the economy, but this really isn't the case when you set the land aside like that.
Well, you know how big those ranches are. When one of the ranchers got up to the microphone and testified that his ranch bordered one of the Prairie Reserve acquisitions for 20 miles. That's a big ranch. I mean,
pretty good size.
Well, they need to be big ranches because you probably need 40 to 50 acres per animal unit.
Yeah. No,
bigger than mine.
Yeah, it's not like the Gallatin
I don't
where
think you can walk it.
Yeah, I don't think
you're blessed to have 20 inches of rain.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that's probably changed for the county governments is the amount of tax base that they've got. I know that when the Flying D was sold and Ted Turner bought it, and the first thing he did was remove all of the things that were related to domestic animals, to the Herefords, and ended up with all the buildings being taken down and really just perimeter fences being installed. The tax base went down because those buildings are gone and everything's been changed. And I would think that up on the High Line that would be the same. I've talked to a number of folks up there that live close to the Prairie Reserve, and it's a staggering amount of land that they've gotten up there. But this bill was, from everything I could see, wasn't really an attack on what their intentions were for that land. It was really for the federal. So that was interesting, with that they were doing it through a resolution simply to give some sort of guidance to the federal government when it comes to those land leases.
Okay. We got to take it. We got to take a quick break, Scott. Hold that thought.
All righty.
And
I'll hold on.
We'll cover that when we come back. All right, we'll be out of here for just a couple minutes, so stay tuned. Steve White's in the house, badbills.com, and Scott Sales, the president of the Montana Senate, is on the line with us, and we'll have more. I want to talk a little about coal strip, too, that we've got a bill coming up on that as well. So we'll talk about that and other things when we get right back. 21 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock in the morning. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Tommy Goff, your morning mayor, and Shane Taubman, half man, half amazing, in beautiful downtown British Columbia. And Steve White, badbills.com, is in the house, and Scott Sales is on the phone with us, the Montana Senate president. And we were talking about land, so finish your thoughts, Scott.
Well, I was just going to say this is one example where Steve was talking about the different type of resolutions. This one won't be going to the governor for his signature because the governor certainly would be against this motion or this resolution. So anyway, there's discussed earlier, there's different mechanisms to try to get our voice out to the decision makers of the federal government, and this is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry.
It was a good hearing on that bill, and appreciate the fact that people drove so far to get there. So now the other one, Tom, you've got one here that probably Scott was pretty tuned into the discussion of it on the Senate floor.
Yeah, I think you commented on the news this morning, I believe, Scott. Senate Bill 331, 9-4 vote now goes to the Senate floor regarding the Kalispell power plant operation. So what's the story?
Yeah, Colstrip, actually.
Colstrip, sorry. Yeah.
Well, this is supposedly the new and improved, 278 bill that was tabled. And they immediately came out with 331, which was kind of odd. It came out without the fixes that we had in store for 278. So there's been a lot of amendments to the bill since the 331 hearing that we had, I think, on Tuesday of last week. I think it was Tuesday. So it's been heavily amended to try to alleviate the fears of, like, the Consumer Council. And I could just real quickly, if we have a couple minutes here, I could go over some of those changes.
I'd like to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first thing is the 500 kV line that runs from Colstrip all the way out to the West Coast. Even though it was mentioned in the title of the bill, that had been dropped out of the bill for some reason. That was just an editing oversight, which was, I don't know how you could miss that, but it did. And so that's put back in the bill. So this acquisition would include that, which is vital for the state of Montana, not just for getting power out of the state, but for our own internal transmission of power from one part of the state to the other. That's a big line that runs all the way from Colstrip to the west part of in fact, all the way out of the west part of the state. And if you're traveling north to Helena, you go right underneath it just before you get to Townsend, just south of Townsend. It's those big two transmission lines. So that's back in the bill. The other thing that's major is that, and we thought that it was the intent to fix this in between 278 and 331, was to give the PSC oversight on these things called stranded costs. Stranded costs are the undepreciated amount of a asset over the life of its forecasted life. So the way the bill read was that, let's say the forecasted life, if it went to the bitter end, would be 4042 at this point. And Northwestern Energy was getting their portion. They owned 220 megawatts of that 740, Unit 4. They're entitled to charging the ratepayer over the course of time that depreciation as you go forward. What it said in the bill was, in the event that it was closed, the ratepayer was going to be on the hook for in early closure. So let's say it closed in 2030. Well, then they would be able to get all their money back regardless on that depreciation allowance for 12 years. So what we did and what we intended to do, but it wasn't in the original draft of 331, was to give PSC oversight on that. So they would determine whether or not Colstrip could shut down early. So if they decided to shut down the plant early and the regulators said, yep, that's what's best in the interest of the consumer, then they would be entitled to that. But the PSC said, no, just because you think it's a good idea, and I'm talking about the utility, to shut it down, we don't, then it would continue on. So that was a major change. Then there were some definitions also, that part where, and this really gets into it's difficult because I didn't know anything about really how utility companies make the vast majority of their money. It's on capital expenditures. So they build a new plant, let's say for $500 million, then they're entitled to get a gain on that capital expenditure. But in this case, where they're talking about acquiring 150 megawatts from a West Coast utility for $1, there's no financial incentive really for them to do it because they can't. You don't gain anything on $1 acquisition, if that makes sense. So in the bill, it said that over a 5-year period of time, if they incur costs associated, let's say like a boiler goes down or a rotor goes down, and they have to pay for that. Typically, that wouldn't be included from a profit standpoint, but because of they have no acquisition cost and to incentivize that purchase to some degree, they would be entitled to up to $40 million over a 5-year period. It would be capped at 5 years. It would be capped at $40 million in the event that one of these major maintenance type things happens, like a boiler goes down or a rotor needs to be replaced or whatever. And if you've ever traveled to Colstrip and you take a tour of the plant, you're talking, if when those type of things happen, you're talking tens of millions of dollars. It's a huge capital outlay. And so what we did in that $40 million is we put definitions in there what they could specifically charge the ratepayer for in the event of, one of these failures. Whereas before it just had generic terms like maintenance and operating costs. And they're not, and quite frankly, and I think I've mentioned this with you before, operating costs, they're not entitled to a gain on. So whatever they pay for the fuel, that's what the utility customers charge. Where they have to pay for labor, that's what the utility customers charge. If they have to acquire additional power out of state because we're at a peak period and they can't supply all the power that we need in the state, it's just a straight pass-through to the consumer. So those three things were addressed in those amendments. I think that makes the bill tremendously better. We're very conscious that I think this is a good move for the state of Montana, but we have to make sure that the ratepayer is protected. And at the same time, we need to balance it that the utility has the opportunity to make a return on their investment to some degree. So we're trying to get it right. We think that this will prolong the life of Colstrip and the hundreds of jobs and millions of dollars that place generates for the Montana economy.
All right. We got to leave it there for this portion of the show. Northwestern Energy, if they do close early, ratepayers be on the hook for $407 million. For the 30% ownership of Colstrip Unit 4. So need to keep that in mind as well. So we're talking with Steve White, badbills.com, and Scott Sales, the president of the Senate of Montana. And thanks, guys, for being here. And we're going to continue the conversation on the other side of the break here. So, good news. Noxitril's done for the day unless it's stuck in rice somewhere. So... We'll be Noxitril free for the rest of the hour. So stay tuned. A lot more coming. We'll be talking more about the bills in the Senate and the House and where we're going. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. 23 minutes before the top of the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, 36 degrees outside. Shane Tobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Half man, half amazing. And in studio, Steve White, badbills.com. On the phone with us is Scott Sales, the president of the Montana Senate. And happy to have all you guys here. And
great to be here.
Yeah, we're talking about the various bills out there. We talked a little bit about Colstrip. We talked about land. What else is on the agenda here?
I want to thank President Sales for whatever assistance he provided in getting House Bill 190 through. And I think a lot of people were giving me a bad time that it probably wasn't going to have a problem, and Scott was correct. Didn't have much of a problem, but it's a bill that provides a change on how county commissioners can establish speed zones and speed limits in school zones. And till now, or in the present law, you have to go through these expensive speed studies, and it doesn't make sense for school zones. And so I came up with an idea when I was in the commission to make it a more efficient process, save the taxpayers a lot of money, and save everybody a lot of time, especially the schools. And it made it through safely through the House, and it was heading through the Senate, got out of the committee, and I think it was on Saturday. It was heard in second reading, and it was 47-2. So, Scott, thank you for that. It seemed to do well over there.
Yeah.
You bet. Not a problem, Steve.
Yeah.
No, I think that's going to be.
So what else we got?
Well, I was going to mention this is an interesting thing for the citizens that probably the biggest bill that nobody really follows over there is House Bill 2, and that is the bill that goes to starts out in the House Appropriations, which is a committee, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the members of the House Appropriations Committee aren't on any other committees. They're working hard on just the appropriations, and that's how all that money is spent. And it looks like they've done a lot of heavy lifting, and now they've sent it over to the Senate. And tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday, in front of the Finance and Claims, Representative Balance, who is the chairman of the House Appropriations, is going to be presenting that to the Senate. And my question is that the bill, or have they put in all of the work of all of the subcommittees so that what the Senate is looking at right now is the big House bill too, with all of the different sections and amendments? And then if it comes out of the committee, then certainly it'll be amended. It'll come to the floor of the Senate for consideration, and that's when all of the work starts with moving it back and forth for agreement between the House and the Senate.
Well, House Bill 2 is the big funding mechanism, and it deals primarily with the state portion of the budget. And I don't know how many of the listeners out there listen to the governor's State of the State address, but I had the opportunity as the Republican to give the rebuttal to the State of the State. And I had a big chart up behind me, a graph that basically had shown over the 18-year period of time I'd been involved in government, starting in 2003 up through the next 2 years, 2020, that, government's grown about 93% here at the state level. And on that chart, which is remarkable, it's almost doubled, you can see that our reliance on federal government has continued to grow over that period from around high 30s up to about 44%. So House Bill 2 is that lower on that graph. It was green and it was gold, and the gold was the state portion and the green was the federal. This would be what we're talking about, the gold portion, which is about 56% of the state budget, which is your dollars and my dollars that are raised by all the different taxes that exist in the state, and, from income tax to a small portion of state property tax to severance taxes on oil, gas, and you name it, and then bed tax, you name it. All the different taxes roll into that amount. So anyway, yes, that bill has come over. It was voted out of the House on straight party line votes. None of the 42 Democrats in the House voted for it. I think 54 of the 58 Republicans voted for it. There was 4 Republican dissenters, probably because it spends too much money. It'll now come over to us. In fact, the Senate won't meet tomorrow on the floor because we want the House or the Senate Finance and Claims not to be disturbed. They're going to just work on House Bill 2 all day long tomorrow. So we're not even going to come on the floor at 1 o'clock. With that said, House Bill 2, since the good old days when I was in the House, has changed quite a bit. It used to be, and Steve, you would remember this, there would be this gigantic debate on House Bill 2 that would rage on the floor of the House.
Yeah, that was going to be my question, is if they do that again.
No, they don't do that anymore. So, like when I was over in the House, we'd be on the floor for oftentimes two straight days from like 9 o'clock in the morning to oftentimes midnight. And they'd bring in food and everything for us, and we would never even leave. It just went on. There'd be hundreds of amendments, hundreds of floor speeches, hundreds of people crying. That's an exaggeration, but there was a lot of weeping and gnashing.
There was weeping, yeah.
It was really quite entertaining theater if you didn't have to sit through all 14, 15, 20 hours of it. But it would go on for days. And then what happened was in 2009, if you remember this, in 2007, we had this humongous surplus. We had $1.2 billion surplus in Schweitzer's second term. That was when I was Speaker of the House. We had this gigantic battle over House Bill 2 that session because we wanted to give lo and behold, we wanted to give a quarter of that surplus back to the taxpayers. Isn't that, that's not too much to ask, I didn't think. We didn't. That was the year of the log cabin Republicans, where we ended the budget, the legislature without a budget. We knew we would have a special session, and there was a group of Republicans that met with the Schweitzer and brokered a big spending bill.
In a log cabin.
Yeah.
In a log cabin.
Without the knowledge of anybody around them.
Well, I wasn't part of that discussion, I can tell you that. So I heard that, we were being called back to a special session when I was driving down the road. And it's like, well, the fix is in, and we spent the whole basically the $1.2 billion. There was, if you remember, there was a $100 million property tax gimmick that the Schweitzer administration put forward. Yeah. That wasn't based on how much property tax. It was across the board, and you had to pay tax on it. So it amounted to about $80 million.
All right.
Anyway,
we got to take another quick break. Okay. Scott, sorry, you got on a roll, man. I got to pay some. I got to pay some bills here.
There's some history here. I got to try to.
We want to hear it.
People.
We'll get back to it right after this. Hang on. 12 minutes for the top of the hour. It's Monday, March 25th, 2019, and Shane Matobin on the line with me from Vancouver, British Columbia. Tommy Goloff, your morning mayor. Steve White, badbills.com in the house, and. We'll finish up Scott Sales' thoughts as we were interrupted here. But
this is important history. I'm glad that Scott is here because he lived through it.
Yeah, go for it, Scott.
So anyway, we had this big budget surplus. We spent all this damn money. We come back in 2009, and the economy has collapsed. That was the Great Recession. And we were going to have to cut the budget substantially. I mean, it was going to be a real Donnybrook. And then if you remember, after the session began, probably about February, the Obama administration, they had control of Congress. They passed through this massive, what was called the shovel-ready, all the shovel-ready projects, the stimulus package. And we got almost $1 billion that was supposed to be for projects around the state, like the St. Mary's water siphon. It was supposed to be for roads. It was supposed to be for improving our schools. It was supposed to be, and very little of that money was spent on any of it. Really what it was back when we came back in 2009, they created these things called companion bills that sit outside of the 5 sections or 6 sections of House Bill 2 that put all this federal money into different projects. And basically what it did was it saved union jobs. It saved government union jobs so that we didn't have to reduce the work force in Helena and around the state that work, and none of the teachers lost their jobs. Had that $1 billion not come in, there would have been significant cuts to government in that during the Great Recession. But those companion bills enabled all this, and this is, I'm simplifying it, but it was a way of funneling all this money into House Bill 2 in different areas. So that is basically, if Steve remembers, House Bill 2 used to be negotiated between the House and Senate in what's called a conference committee, and it would go on for hours. And you would sit on the Senate or House floor for hours waiting for these people, 6 people, basically to be in committee to decide how the money was going to be spent. And without any hearing, and just these people sitting downstairs in a free conference committee being able to hash out the details of how we were going to get out of town. Now that is done oftentimes in these companion bills that sit outside of House Bill 2, and that's why House Bill 2 just sells right through. And then the real negotiating is in these companion bills that sit separate from House Bill 2. And there's it was at one point, there was just like one of them per section. Now we're up to like 5 per section. So that's really where you need to look to see where the sausage is going to get made over the next 4 weeks.
That's excellent information because there's a lot of stuff going on that people don't realize.
We got to take another quick break. Rush update is coming up and some other things. We'll be right back. 4 minutes for the top of the hour. It is Monday, March 25th, 2019, 37 degrees outside. Tommy Goloff, your morning mayor. Shane Matobin, half man, half amazing on the line. And Scott Sales, the president of the Montana Senate. Steve White, badbills.com. We got a full house here, gentlemen. And, we got just a few minutes left. So, Scott, anything we need to finish up on? I was hoping we'd get some time on Medicaid, but I don't know if we got enough time to cover that in 4 minutes.
No, I'm not even going to try that. I will say that things are moving along. Yeah. We're forced to have a budget completed and be out of here in 30 days. We're on day 60, so we're 2/3 the way. Yeah. If we go the distance, a lot of things are going on. It's busy. There's still a lot of bills that are out there, as Steve explained to you. So
is that Medicare?
Hard to work here for the next 4 weeks.
Is that Medicaid bill at the top of the heap? Is that something that's kind of mandatory spending, or how much of the?
No, we don't have to do it, but we don't have to do it. But it certainly is it's the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah, you're going to have to wander around it to find out where the rest of the money goes if you're going to consider that as passed, and I don't think the governor would sign it if it wasn't in there.
No, it's going to be, well, it's not part of House Bill 2 at this point. It's another companion bill, and that's another whole thing. Okay, I should say a companion bill. It's not even a companion bill. It's a dog and cat bill. And that's, Steve knows what that means. That's an independent appropriation outside of House Bill 2.
Right.
So there's we can talk about that and should. Maybe next week we can talk about all the different type of spending bills and how Medicaid.
Yeah, you'll be a little closer when you got to. Because you've only got 30 days to go, as you say, so we got to get it done by.
Scott is.
Why?
Scott, is that the infrastructure bill? Is that a component of House Bill 2, or is that hanging out there by itself?
It's an independent. Well, especially the one bill that's going to basically mirror or set up a program that's going to be like TSEP, which hopefully will take the politics out of infrastructure. That's a standalone bill. All these bills will, at some point. Will be, not all, but some of them, will, unless they're put in the statutory appropriations, will end up in House Bill 2 as some variety.
Yeah, and I see that the last 2 years ago in the TSEP bill, which is the Treasure State bill, that the Nixon Bridge was a pretty important thing for Gallup County in that. But this time the county commissioners worked hard on the Meridian Bridge and Williams Bridge in the Willow Creek area and worked with Broadwater County, Jefferson County, and it didn't make the short list, but, you know, it's a competitive environment against a lot of other different counties with a lot of other different legislators.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's...
okay, gentlemen, I appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Scott, for being on the air with us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Yeah,
Thank you, Senator White.
Did you say Senator White?
He's not a senator. Come on.
Well, it's in Canada, maybe.
Yeah. They have metric positions up there.
There you go.
So, all right. Well, we got about a minute or so left here. Steve, any final thoughts going out?
Well, I really appreciate that President Sales had the time, for an entire hour to be on the air, and I guess the plan is that he and I will be sharing your microphone on Mondays.
Yep.
And I'm grateful for that.
Sure.
I think I'm kind of at the 40,000-foot view, and he is right down inside the forest.
Yeah, so it's the best of both worlds.
It is. I kind of, I can get out of there quicker than he can. So but no, it's great having him on the air.
All right. Thanks to Scott Sales, Montana President of the U.S. Senate, the Montana Senate. Thanks to Steve White, badbills.com. Go check out his website. Say goodbye, Shane.
Goodbye, Senator Sales. Thank you, folks, for listening. Talk to you tomorrow, Mayor.
All right. That'll take care of it for us, Stevie, and we'll be out of here. And, hey, thanks for everybody. Thanks for the phone calls, the texts, and all that. And thanks for supporting the show. And we'll see everybody bright and early tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.